हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। यत्र योगेश्वर कृष्ण तत्र पार्थ धनुर्धर तत्र विजय वीर्य श्री संपद शांति। उग्रं वीरं महाविष्णुं जलतं सर्वमुखं नृसिंहं भीषणं भद्रं मृत्योर्मृत्युं नमाम्यहम्। हिरण्यगर्भप्रदांश काल्पनिक प्राण प्रज्ञा ज्ञानानंद स्वरूपिणे नमो नारायणै हरिः हरिः ओम। ओम पूज्याय राघवेंद्राय सत्यधर्मरताय च भजतां कल्पवृक्षाय नमतां कामधेनवे। ओम श्री कृष्णाय नमः। Sri Krishna is the wonderful God who came down to earth as the eighth incarnation, eighth avatar of Sri Vishnu, Sri Hari Narayana. Krishna's personality is wonderful. It is a great joy and bliss to go through the life and teachings of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Yogeshwar. Sri Krishna is born in the Dwapar Yuga, maybe thousands of years, 5,000 to 6,000 years back, we do not know, thousands of years back, who came down to earth to destroy the evil and the wicked and to establish the truth and righteousness on earth, because that is the basis on which the life goes on. Sri Krishna was born as the eighth son of Vasudeva and Devaki, and he was born in the jail. The brother of Devaki, the mother of Sri Krishna, once he was driving both Vasudeva and Devaki, his brother-in-law and his sister, on the chariot, and he heard a voice from the sky that the eighth son born to them, Vasudeva and Devaki, is going to kill Kamsa. So Kamsa was a wicked man and he was a tyrant. He was against all truth and order, and he was bloated with his egoism, and he was torturing the people. He had taken the bones from the gods that he is invincible. So Sri Krishna was born on the earth, came down to earth with a fraction of the powers of the Sri Hari Narayana to destroy all these wicked forces and establish righteousness and justice. His main aim also was to teach the people on earth, the embodied beings, how to how to get back their original nature, that they are the choiceless consciousness and the supreme creative energy, and they are the deathless, fearless and changeless spirits who have taken the perishable body. That was the main purpose of Sri Krishna taking birth on the earth. So Sri Krishna is Kamsa, having heard this voice from the sky that the eighth son is going to kill him, he started killing all the children born to Vasudeva and Devaki. He imprisoned them immediately, and whenever the Devaki became pregnant, he killed the child. So systematically he killed all the 6 children, and the 7th children was Balarama, the elder brother of Sri Krishna, born to Devaki, but the embryo was transferred on to Rohini, the another wife of Vasudeva. So she became the foster mother. She became the mother of Balarama. Rohini became the mother of Balarama by getting the embryo from the womb of Devaki. Then the eighth son, Sri Krishna, was born to Devaki, and by all the miracles that all happened to the divine incarnations, the gods went to sleep, there was floods, and Sri Krishna was transported to Gokula, and in his place another stillborn child was kept. So Kamsa came to kill that child, and that child escaped from his grip and told that the eighth son of Devaki, who is going to kill you, is growing up in Gokula. So the Kamsa started killing all the children, whoever was born during that period. So he was such a tyrant, and Sri Krishna, born in the jail, grew up with the foster mother. So Sri Krishna, during his young age itself, he started showing amazing divine powers. He was a very jolly good fellow. He was playing with all the friends, and he was playing the flute, and all the cows around in the village would come and listen to his music and were filled with milk, and there was prosperity. So there were so many wicked forces which were torturing the people. There was a black serpent which was troubling the people, and it would hide in the ocean. So Sri Krishna went into the ocean and he brought out the black serpent Kali, and then he danced on its hooves and he killed them and relieved. And he lifted the Mandara mountains, and he killed the Jarasandha, the relative of Kamsa, who was torturing the villagers. So Krishna and Balarama, they were inseparable, and they grew up, and they were notorious in their times. And Sri Krishna always was a benevolent fellow, always running to the help of the poor and the helpless. He was an incarnation of love and kindness, and his beauty was, his hands was so handsome, all the people would forget themselves beholding his divine forms. Sri Krishna's life is not complete without mentioning his lover Radha. So when Sri Krishna attained past the adolescence, he fell in love with Radha. Radha fell in love with Sri Krishna, and they were loving each other. Radha was a simple maiden of the cowherd community, and even Sri Krishna was looking after the cows. He was not a king, or he was a very commoner. And once, by that time, Krishna's name and fame had spread everywhere, and people used to come to him for advice and guidance, and he was well versed, and he knew very well about the politics, and many kings, they came to him for advice. So though Radha was a few years elder to Krishna, both were inseparable. Once Krishna and Radha went to Vaik. Radha did not marry Krishna, though they wanted to marry very much. Even Krishna expressed his willingness to marry Radha. Once Radha and Krishna went to Mathura, and there she saw the Krishna's glory, name and fame and his strength. So Radha, very sensitive girl, she saw the Sri Krishna, the kings coming and hugging him and being obedient to him, and all the people praising him and applauding him, and Krishna mingling with joy and showing his happiness. And Radha thought this Sri Krishna is such a wonderful, divine, great personality, whereas she is a simple village girl. How a simple village girl with small desires can marry such a great divine person who has great destiny before him, and how she can become an impediment in his life. After all, woman depends on the man for satisfaction of her desires, and woman always pulls down the man for the mundane life of the family and the children. Whereas the life of Sri Krishna is of divine, meant for the whole universe, for the whole world. So she decided not to become an obstruction in the path of Sri Krishna, not to become a drag, not to pull him down to this small world of family and children, and decided not to marry him, but remained as an eternal lover of Sri Krishna. She never married, but she always spent her life by chanting the name of Sri Krishna. And the chanting of name of Sri Krishna is such blissful, she forgot the whole world itself, and even she forgot the name and forgot the form of Sri Krishna, but only retained the devotion and stood steadfast with the love of Sri Krishna. So Sri Krishna, though he offered her to marry Radha, she declined, and Sri Krishna went on further, and he became very close to the Pandavas, who was his very relatives. The Pandavas were 5 brothers, closely knit with a common wife, Draupadi. Those days were the days of freedom without rigid rules, and a man could marry any number of wives, whomever he or she fell in love with, she liked, and the woman also could marry any number of men. So when Arjuna went to the contest of winning over the Draupadi, he won the contest by breaking the Pashpatastra of the bone of the bow and arrow of the bow of the King Drupada, and he announced to his mother Kunti, who was looking after all the 5 children, because the Kunti story has got another dimension, and these 5 children were born to Kunti from different gods, from the gods of Yama, from the gods of Surya, from the god of the Ashwins and all other gods, by the virtue of the other gods blessing Draupadi, they were all born with their powers. And Kunti, when Arjuna announced that he has won a booty, so quietly Kunti said, you distribute all among yourselves, share among yourselves. So as per the mother's order, not to break the word of Kunti, all the 5 brothers accepted Draupadi as wife and became their husbands. This is how Draupadi became the wife of the 5 Pandavas. Now against the Pandavas stood the tyrants, the wicked persons, Kauravas, who were 100, of whom the Duryodhana, the wicked man, was the chief, was the head, and he denied. They were all the brothers of Dhritarashtra, they were the sons of Dhritarashtra, and Pandavas were the sons of Pandu, and Pandu and Dhritarashtra were brothers. So naturally, the brothers' children, there was animosity, there was competition, there was jealousy, and all sorts of animosity. So the Duryodhana, to beat the Pandavas, invited Dharmaraya to play the dice. So the dice game is so dangerous that destroys all the players. This is the name of the game. Everybody plays dice. Gambling is such a thing that it hijacks the balance of the person and the greed takes over. So more they play the dice, more they lose with the hope that they will win the next game. So the next game will put them into greater misery, greater depths, greater defeat, and they bet all their, including their honor, including their what all they hold dear to them, they hold it as a bet. So Duryodhana won over all the king, all the property of the kingdoms of the Pandavas, and he even offered that you bet your wife in this. This is the most degradable point, degradable situation of the Mahabharata, of the Pandavas and the Kauravas, and Dharmaraya went down as one of the most stupid person to bet his own wife for playing the dice. And even the teachers of the Pandavas and the Kauravas, who taught them all the noble values, and this Bhishma was the grandfather of the Pandavas and the Kauravas, and Dronacharya was the teacher of the Pandavas and the Kauravas, who taught him the Dhanurvidya, the bow and arrow, and all the sword and all the fighting techniques. So they were all on the side of Duryodhana, Kauravas, and they were mute spectators. So Duryodhana, once the Pandavas were defeated, Duryodhana ordered his younger brother Dushasana to bring the Draupadi to the open, to the Sabhagraha, to the assembly, and disrobe her. And these stupid people, Bhishma and Drona, were mute spectators. They behaved like dogs because they had eaten the food of the Duryodhana and wanted to serve him, and in spite of all the wretched and the evil ways of Duryodhana, and that was the cause of their downfall and of their getting destroyed. So Krishna was observing all these things unattached, and he was a friend of Arjuna, a guidance of Arjuna, he was a charioteer of Arjuna. Arjuna was totally dependent on Sri Krishna, and the Pandavas were totally dependent on Sri Krishna, the Supreme Yogeshwar, the Supreme Power, who was not exhibiting his powers to others. So Sri Krishna was observing all this, and Draupadi, being helpless, even her own teachers, her husband, even though she had 5 husbands, they could not help her, they could not come to her rescue. And the 2 useless old people, Bhishma and Drona, they were silent spectators. And then she cried for Krishna, "Oh Krishna, help me, save me, my honor," and all that. So Sri Krishna came to her rescue and protected her from disrobing, and he granted her the endless cloth to protect herself. So Krishna always came to the rescue of his devotees. Then there was then after the dice game, after the Pandavas lost everything, so Duryodhana told them, you don't have anything and you leave the kingdom. But the Sri Krishna told them, at least you give them 5 villages, or at least one village where the 5 families can live, the Pandavas can live. Even that Duryodhana refused. And Duryodhana told, okay, you come back, you go to Vanavas, you go to forest for 13 years and come back on the 14th year. You will see. And 1 year you have to be incognito. You have to live in incognito. So the Pandavas was driven to forest and spent 13 years in the forest, and Sri Krishna was constantly on their guard. So in the end of the 14 years, they came to ask their kingdom back. Again Duryodhana refused, and there was no other way but for the Pandavas and the Kauravas, the 100 brothers of Duryodhana, to fight. There was no way other than to fight, because Duryodhana broke every word, broke every rules of the game, and he came down to the level of an animal, losing his balance, losing his power of discretion. So there was no other way but to kill all the brothers and all those whoever on the side of the evil and the wicked, whoever was on the path of the wickedness and untruth, whoever did not follow the righteousness, who were not devoted to honesty, truth, honesty and dharma, they had no place to live and they had to be killed. So Arjuna and the Pandavas, they prepared themselves for battle, and Sri Krishna became the charioteer of Arjuna in the war. So all the kings supporting the Pandavas joined on the Pandava side, and all the kings and their armies joined on the side of Duryodhana, aligned themselves on the Duryodhana side, and the battle was about to begin. So in the battle was about to begin, Arjuna was overcome by pity, by kindness, and by weakness, by impotence. So he dropped the bow and arrows and told Sri Krishna that he cannot fight, because on the other side are his own teachers, on the other side are his own brothers or his own relatives with whom he grew up. Then Sri Krishna told Arjuna, the charioteer of Arjuna, became the charioteer of the whole humanity, to guide from impotence and weakness and impotence to strength, energy and valor. So he taught basic principle of life and existence to Arjuna in the form of Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is the song of God. It is the teaching of teaching of Sri Krishna to Arjuna in the middle of the battlefield, and urging him to fight the evil and injustice. So thus the purpose of the Sri Krishna's incarnation, having killed many tyrants and evil kings, he established dharma among the people and made them realize what they are. So the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, though thousands of years have elapsed, they have retained even today the most relevant and appropriate, because it consists of the eternal truths. So the supreme truths of Bhagavad Gita are the guiding lights for life. So the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita deals with the dropping of with the abandonment of the intent to abandon the war, intent to run away from the battle by Arjuna. And the second chapter onwards, Sri Krishna teaches him. The second chapter of Bhagavad Gita teaches the Sankhya Yoga. He teaches to Arjuna what is this life, what you are made of. So the whole world of bodies, objects and beings, they are insentient. They are all made of 8 great elements. That is, there are 2 things, the Purusha and Prakriti. So the Prakriti is made of air, water, fire, earth and space, ego, intellect and mind. So these are the 8 forms of Prakriti. They have no energy of their own, they have no light of their own, they do not have anything of their own to make them move and act and active. So into this, and they are the building blocks of life that this whole world is made of. Sri Krishna tells in very simple words the very structure, the very base, the very essence of this whole existence. So all the bodies and objects and beings that are made of these 8 only. The 5 great elements, ego, intellect and the mind. So every object in this world has got its own guiding intelligence. It has got its own identity. And it has got all the 3 qualities of sattva, rajas and tamas. But they cannot move, they are dead. They have no consciousness. And into these building blocks of life that make up the bodies and the beings, once the bodies are formed by the creative power of the Supreme Lord enters into this body by a fraction of his own powers as prana and prajna and the bliss. So it becomes a living entity. So Prakriti is made out of the 8 factors, and the Purusha is the divine energy with consciousness, prana and prajna. And with the combination of Prakriti and Purusha, all the living beings start moving, start acting, start fighting, start enjoying, start all sorts of activities to promote their ego, intellect, to exhibit their qualities. The whole world is nothing but the exhibition, is the expression of this divine energy through the bodies possessing the qualities. So it is the qualities that perform. The sattva, rajas and tamas, they are the qualities contained in the bodies, made out of these great elements. So everybody has the quality, and these qualities are expressed through the bodies and organs. And these bodies and organs are also the tools and the medium for the embodied soul, for the Atma which has entered into the body due to desire, to satisfy its desire through these bodies. And these qualities of sattva, rajas and tamas is what has attracted, what has made the Atma, has made the embodied soul to fall in love with. So the Atma falls in love with qualities exhibited by the bodies which are made out of these great elements. So this body is nothing but the exhibition, is the carrier of the qualities, and activated, exhibited, experienced by the divine soul, which is the soul propriety, which is the soul composition of divine energy and the consciousness and the supreme creative intelligence. So, we do not have to give too much value to this body. Sri Krishna said to Arjuna, "You are a fool to think you are only a body and a mind. You are not the body and the mind alone. The body is only made is a conjunction of these five great elements which the Supreme Lord has created, which He has made, which has brought together. Nobody can create this body, nobody can bring these five great elements and form a body, but the Supreme Lord has created this body which is purely conjectory, which is purely an illusion, because it constantly undergoes the changes, and it has got the beginning and the end. So you are not the perishable body, you are the imperishable soul, you are the Atma, my own Amsha, my own eternal spark. You are like the spark of the blazing fire, and without this blazing fire there is no spark. You are like a ray of the sun, sun ray of the light ray of the sun, and without the sun there is no sun rays. So understand that without me, without the Supreme Lord, you are not there. Nothing else exists in this world. So the body is always perishable. Whether you want to fight or run away from the battle, you will die, you will be killed, the body will disappear. So the best thing is for you to fight for the truth and righteousness on which this whole world is established. So Sri Krishna teaches Arjuna what you are made. Your outer form is this body, driven by the mind, which is the most powerful of the body organs, and a guiding factor which is a focusing medium for its all the powers. And still the mind is also an organ, and this mind doesn't have any intelligence of its own. It has to be guided by the supreme creative intelligence, and this intelligence should be guided by the truth and righteousness. The right knowledge is very, very essential for a person to perform righteous actions, because the mind cannot decide what is right and wrong. It is decided by the intellect, and intellect is guided by the knowledge. So the right knowledge is very, very essential. So Supreme Lord Sri Krishna tells Arjuna what is the right way and what is all these objects are made of, what the body is made of, what the mind is made of. And mind is only made by the society, which comes and joins the body when the child is only 3 or 4 years, and it goes on growing and growing like that. So the mind also has to be guided by the right knowledge. So knowledge is the light that guides the intellect. Without right knowledge, one is going to fall into the pit. So it is only the Supreme Lord who creates these bodies. So this Bhagavad Gita is the essence of the Vedas and the Upanishads. So the beautiful creative methodology, creative forces, all these things are explained in the Vedas and the Upanishads, and they are explained, they are summarized in the Bhagavad Gita. And the Vishnu Sahasranama is the essence of the Vedas, Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. So in each name is extolled, each power and glory of the Supreme Lord in 1,000 names contains the explanation and the greater details of the Vedas and the Upanishads. So, Yasmin Vrukshe Supalashe Devai Sampipate Yamaha Atrano Vishpati Pita Purana Anuvedati. So, Yamayana Rishi in the Anushtup Chandas praise to Yamadevata. This, our body is like a leaf, and the Supreme Lord experiences the fruits of the previous lives through these bodies. And if we observe a leaf, we observe that the leaf consists of various small nerve-like threads, and the gap of which is filled with the green chlorophyll. And it is the Supreme Lord who puts these green particles of which remove all the impurities, convert the chlorophyll, the green, which converts the carbon dioxide into oxygen and makes them useful. So the Supreme Lord makes every body to perform its action and fulfill the journey of the soul towards enlightenment. So nobody's life is wasted, even though they are engaged. Though the people, we feel that they are engaged in evil and devious actions, for them that is the right path, because this world of duality and relativity, they are all engaged in countering the opposing qualities. Gunanu gunavartante. So the whole world is nothing but the dynamism of the qualities of the sattva, rajas and tamas. So they are all at loggerheads. Person of tamasic nature doesn't like the people of sattvic nature. An ignorant man is against the knowledgeable person. He cannot mix. So they oppose each other. A person of action doesn't like the person of inactivity. So the person of rajasic nature does not like the person of sattvic nature. So the sattvic nature always wants to go in the path of truth and kindness and righteousness, whereas the tamasic person wants to adopt the path of ignorance, foolishness, and want to follow the path of sensory pleasures at any cost without following any righteousness, without any following right way. So they are all against each other. Everywhere we see that fighting going on. They are all right in their own way, but they are fed with wrong knowledge. A person fighting, taking to arms is right, and a person following the non-violent, truthful way is also right. So the person in the non-violent, right way, path of truth, he is standing in the path of, as an obstruction in the path of a person who is a person of action, who wants to achieve his goal of name and fame and wealth and domination. So it is the qualities that oppose. So when the qualities change, the person automatically changes. So it is the play of the qualities, it is the fight of the qualities, it is the conjunction of the qualities, and it is the opposition of the qualities. The whole world is nothing but the dynamism and movement of the different qualities, all countering each other. So all these teachings are made to Arjuna by Sri Krishna, and all the bodies are created only by the Supreme Lord. all beings are born by the conjunction of the Prakriti and Purusha. Ajo hi agne rajanishta shokatso apashad janitvarmagre tena deva devatam agramayantasthena romayan upamedyasaha sharabaranyam manute dishami tena chinvanastanvo nishida sharabante shugrachadvayam dvishvasvamte shugyachathu. This is the Yajurveda mantra, 13th chapter, 31st mantra. It says, the unborn and Supreme Lord, the Jivatma manifests himself as Jivatma by the grace of the Supreme Lord. It is only by the approval and the creative power of the Supreme Lord, the Jivatma, the spark of the divine, enters into the bodies and expresses himself. And only after entering into the bodies, he realizes the supreme power of the Supreme Lord. And only by this power of the Supreme Lord, they all attain divinity and they all attain glory. And they all attain the fulfilled desires and become purified. And in spite of being in the body, they become released from the body even while living, and they use this body for the fulfillment of their desires. So the body is only a medium and a tool for the performing the desired actions of the soul, and only if the protection of the body becomes itself the prime importance, then the goal of the soul, then the purpose of the body itself is defeated. So Sri Krishna says, this body is only a tool and it is only to perish and you have to fight. That is the only way left to you. And even if you don't fight, the nature will compel you to fight. And because the order of the world is such that all natural forces perform by their own nature, nobody can restrain. The air, yes, just the air blows, the water flows, the fire burns. So your body also made out of these great elements, they perform in spite of your reluctance. So it is only natural that you fight. So the beautiful Bhagavad Gita guides Arjuna, and there are very beautiful teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, because Sri Krishna told him that there are 4 paths of yoga. Sri Krishna is the Yogeshwar. He told 4 yogas. One is the Sannyas Yoga, the path of renunciation. Then he taught the Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion. Then he taught the Karma Yoga, the path of action, the selfless action. And he taught the Jnana Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. So he told what are the difficulties, what are the advantages, and the easiest of all these is the Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion. Surrender to me totally. Manmana bhava madbhakta madhya imam namaskuro. You bow down to me, you fill your mind with me. Do you ask me only, all your actions are defective, and you can overcome the defects, the demerits of this defective action only by abandoning the attachment to the fruits of action. So whatever you do, you offer it to me, and I will absolve you, I will release you from the sin of the evil actions. Even if you do evil action due to ignorance, you will not incur sin. This is the supreme assurance and given to Arjuna. So even if you fight and kill the people in the course of your duties for the establishment, truth and righteousness, you don't incur sin. So this is my duty to, once you take shelter in me, once you surrender to me, I will take care. So Manmanabha Madbhakta Madhyajam Namaskro. So offer all Sarva Dharma Parityajya. You take, abandon all paths and take shelter in me only. This is the easiest and the best. So once you total surrender with supreme devotion, you have overcome all the problems of retracting your divinity. You will come back and you will reach me, you will merge in me only. This is the assurance given by Sri Krishna to Arjuna. Then to convince Arjuna, Sri Krishna says that I know many births earlier to this one and you do not know because you are only body conscious. Whereas I know the past, present and the future because I am totally conscious. I have attained supreme consciousness. I have no attachment with this body. I have no desires. I am pure in every way. I am pure divine energy with consciousness. So I know all things. I have taken many births and you also have taken many births. And I know all the births, many births you have taken and also I know what all the births I have taken because I take birth on my own free will. Nothing forces me to come back to earth and take bodies and be in this imprisoned state. Whereas you are bound, you are bound to desire, you are bound to actions, you are bound to fruits of action, you are bound to the perishable bodies whom you call relatives and friends. And whereas I am not bound, for me only the truth and justice, the righteousness and the joy is my nature, and all things follow their nature. So Sri Krishna, to convince him, he shows the Vishwarupa Darshana, his cosmic form. Supreme Lord Sri Krishna shows the cosmic form to Arjuna to convince him that he is the divine. He is basically in essence who he is, and he is the one who Dharayati Jagat, who is the one who has taken this form and who is supporting the entire universe by his powers of truth and justice and knowledge and supreme creative energy. So, and then he says, I have told you, I have taught you, and you do what you feel right. Even then, Sri Krishna does not tell Arjuna, you do this and you do that. Because telling somebody to do this, if they are not convinced, if they don't want to do it, it is entry, it is violating their freedom. It is coming against their freedom. So Sri Krishna says, it is your karma, your freedom. What you want to do, you do, but I have told you everything that is to be told. And then Sri Krishna takes up, and then Arjuna takes up the arms and get ready to fight. So Sri Krishna, when you are there with me, I have no fear and everything is yours. So Arjuna starts fighting in the battle. This is the beautiful story of Arjuna and Sri Krishna in the Mahabharata, and all the wonderful games, plays and the games played by Sri Krishna are beautifully explained in the Bhagavatam. So it is one of the greatest epics of the Hindus. Now there is no house, there is the whole Indian culture is nothing but the stories of the Ramayana and Mahabharata, the name Ram and Krishna and their teachings, their glory and power and glory, or the guiding lines or the guiding forces and the way of life all the Hindus and the Indians and even the world over. So Hinduism has spread world over right from the beginning, and because it is essentially based on truth, righteousness, justice, freedom and knowledge. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. These are the four pillars on which the Hinduism are based, and they are eternal. So all other religions who come from time to time, if they have to survive, if they have got subsistence, they also contain the essence of the Hinduism, that is Satyam, truth. Truth is one, it cannot be different to different people. Jnana, knowledge, because knowledge is power and there is no true knowledge. There is only knowledge of truth is the true knowledge. There is no knowledge of the untruth. So Satyam, Jnanam. Anantam. So Anantam is eternal. The Supreme Lord is not limited by any time and space. He is eternal and He is limitless, and He is the divine creative energy which is neither created nor destroyed. And Brahm is this pure consciousness with the power of knowing, the power of creation, with the power of enjoying the bliss. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. That is this Hinduism. That is the explained, that is in detail in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Vishnu Sahasranama. So, if we want to know, we have to be purely conscious. We cannot have preconceived notions. Preconceived notions means memory, and memory is about the past, and all the past is what is not new or what is not at present. And our mind cannot know the real, cannot know the truth, cannot know the present, cannot know the unknown. So because the pillar of the support of the mind is only memory. What all it creates, what all it sees, what all it interprets, what all it manipulates, permutation, combination, is all based on the past, based on the memory. So these are the limitations of the mind. So Sri Krishna tells in great detail to Arjuna all the things, the great nuances, the great theories, the supreme truths of life and existence. There is nothing to grieve for. We have not carried anything, we are not brought anything, we are not carrying anything. Our only the process of journey is purification. The purification of the body, the purification of the mind, and the purification of the spirits, of the soul, to absolve of all desires, because desire is only for this world of objects which are perishable and which are continuously changing. So to realize this truth is to be free from the desires, and to be free from the desire is to retain our divinity, that is to be a Buddha. So the Buddhahood is a state of pure consciousness without any desire, because the moment desire steps in, the consciousness is clouded and becomes a mind. So the mindlessness, it is not mindlessness, it is the mindfulness, it is the totally be awareness. To be totally aware is only the mindfulness, and to be totally aware, to be totally conscious without any desire is the Buddhahood, that is to be supremely joyful, because there is no place for misery, there is no place for sorrow, there is no place for disappointment when we are totally conscious, when there is no thought in our mind. When we are free from all thoughts, means we are free from all desires, we are free from all fears, we are free from all expectations, and we are established in pure consciousness, which is the total bliss. So Sri Krishna says, you do your duty and forget it, and don't be attached to the fruits of action, don't expect anything from the action, because any contribution to action from your side is only three: Karanam, Karanam, Kartrum. The way you are doing, the means you are doing, the purpose you are doing. The other three are beyond you. The other two are Adhishtanam and Daivatra Panchamam. That is the outer situation. Even the fruits of action depends on the outer situation that exists. You cannot sell the refrigerator in Antarctica, so you can only sell some warm objects. So the outer, in the world of the ignorant, your knowledge has no value, it has no meaning. The people who are running for name, fame, wealth, your words of peace and tranquility, your peace of dhyan and your teaching of peace and knowledge has no value. In the world of the ignorant, the knowledge, they do not care for knowledge. Only those who want to attain, only those who want to be sure, those who only want to aware, who are aware, who want to gain power and the power over the empiricals, they are interested in knowledge. So the dark continents, the people where they are clamoring for earthly properties, for the perishable things of life, they are not interested, they have no inclination, they have no keenness for the divine and spiritual knowledge. Only the rich countries, only those who are belly is full, only those who have engaged and enjoyed life fully and ask what next, they are only interested in spiritual knowledge. But the poor countries where they have to struggle for food, they have to, all their time is gone for earning their livelihood, they cannot be, one cannot expect them to be interested in spiritual knowledge. So Adhishtanam and ultimately the Daivatra Panchamam, the divine will, nobody knows. Mahamanasena Maha, the divine will we do not know. We do not know in what direction the whole world is moving. So it is the Supreme Lord who decides on the fruits that one gets by due to their action, and it also the fruit one gets by due to their action depends on their karma, or depends on the actions of their previous lives. If we have taken illegally and in a forcefully in the evil ways, we have usurped the property of others, we have to pay back. So we will be working for them in this earth. This is the karma theory, because ultimately everything is equalizing, everything is neutralizing. So the karma theory carries forward so that everything becomes pure, so that the account becomes nullified, equalized. So nobody can be evil forever and nobody can be righteous forever. So there is no divinity or devilry, because there are two sides of the coin. Ultimately everything will vanish and only pure consciousness will remain. This is the order of existence. So the Supreme Lord teaches in this Bhagavad Gita the very fine intricacies of life. So Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, one has to follow. This is the only way of following, because the Supreme Lord is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, and in our way of life, if we follow these, we will be surely reaching the Supreme Divine. Om. Om Dhrudaya Namaha. So the beautiful incarnation, beautiful birth of Sri Krishna has been a beacon light for the whole humanity. And Om Dhrudaya Namaha, Om salutations to him whose nature and capacity does not decline. The Supreme Self is changeless. There is no change in his nature. The nature is ever fresh and new. The creation is continuous and is never affected by anything. The strength of the body comes from food and a strong mind. Healthy body is the womb for a healthy mind. Healthy mind is the womb for a good soul. So we have to be this firmness. This firmness is based on our conviction, on our understanding, on our knowledge. Once we know what we believe is true, our mind becomes firm, and once our mind becomes firm, our body organs also become concerted, well focused, well directed in their actions. Once we know the direction and the destination we have to reach, we are firm in moving in that direction. If we do not know where we have to go and what we have to do, our mind is confused and actually our body organs will follow. So the Supreme Self is very, very firm. There is no duality. There is no relativity. The Atma is pure light where everything is very, very clear. There is no dark patches. There is no unknown fields. So the Atma is totally pure, totally light, totally knowledgeable, where there is nothing unknown or dual. And this it is supremely pure. So our Atma is supremely pure. It is not attached. Though it experiences, it is not attached. So the Supreme Lord at the macro level is supremely pure. And all the great elements, air, water, fire, earth and space, they are supreme devotees. They are always ever the carriers of the Supreme Lord, and they are ever pure. The Supreme Lord enters the air and it becomes the pranavayu, it becomes the vital air which is supremely pure. This purity is maintained by the Agni, the burning qualities of all impurities. So the Agni is one of the greatest. It is the power of the Supreme Lord. It is the purifying power, and once it is purified, it has got the enormous power of the uplifting energy. Energy is always pure. The moment energy contains impurities, its burning power is reduced. So it burns up all the impurities. Impurities become the fuel, and the fire that burns the impurities is ever pure. So when you see a blazing fire, it is the impurities that are burning, and the pure fire is the fire itself, which does not require any fuel. So it is the Niranjan. So the Supreme Lord is the fire that burns up all the impurities. This is the most beautiful paradox, that when we see a fire, it is the fuel that is burning, and the fire that burns is not visible, is ever latent. So in a wood or in kerosene, it is the matter that burns and the fire is hidden. So just as the energy is in the food we take, and the food is digested, and the energy is released. So also in the fire, the fuel is burnt, and the energy is released. So the energy is everywhere. Even when the atom is split, the energy is released. So the energy is there in everything, which combines things, which separates things, which transforms things, which moves things. And this is the energy that we mistake for the fuel. So it is the fuel that is burnt, and what burns is the Supreme Lord, the divine energy. So this is very, very firm. There is no ambiguity, there is no duality for this. And this creation of this Supreme Lord entering into so many matter of making them active, making them dynamic is the power of the Supreme Lord. So we know now the secrets of how the creation goes on. This creative energy guided by Supreme Creative Intelligence brings together various matters together. It brings together, it dissociates together, it destroys together, it devours together. All the actions are done by the Supreme Lord in the form of this divine energy, which is neither created nor destroyed. So, and it imparts the strength. So we get the strength from the food, and the food is digested. The energy contained in the food enters into our body, and the Supreme Lord stationed in the body digests the food, burns up this food, and releases the strength and gains strength from the food. So everything manifest contains the unmanifest energy, and the manifest is consumed, and the unmanifest is latent, it is hidden, it is released. This is the beauty of creation and dissolution. So the Yama is very, very inside us. He is continually eating up all the cells in our body. Up to one stage, he goes on creating, multiplying, and after maybe probably till we are 30 or 35 years, he goes on multiplying and creating the cells of the body, making it grow, and after maybe 45, 50 years, he goes on consuming the same body cells, and the body start losing its strength. So whatever manifests is also created by the Supreme Lord, and whatever manifests is also absorbed, is also burnt up, and is also devoured by the Supreme Lord. He is the creator. He is the creator Brahma, and he is the Vishnu who is supporting these manifest bodies, and he is the Yama who is the Ishvara who starts devouring the cells that are created. So the one supreme reality, the Trinity, Supreme Godhead of Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, is the Supreme Sri Hari Narayana, who is there as the Godhead in every unmanifest way, expressing himself in manifest forms. So he is very, very firm, he is very, very clear, he is established. So once we are clear in our mind, once we focus our mind into the Supreme Lord, he shows the path, he shows the way, what we have to do. What all we have to do is what is very, very clear in front of us. We should not speculate, we need not speculate, we need not imagine and go and in search of things of which we are not sure. When we are in doubt, keep quiet, because we should not try to do something just because we cannot keep quiet. So it is inviting trouble. So when in doubt, keep quiet, and only when once we are very sure, things are very, very clear, We have no doubt or ambiguity, and once we are sure what we want, then only we should take action. Till then we should control this mind which is like a monkey which wants to do something, not knowing what to do and what it wants. And this firmness we have to achieve, and this is one sure way of getting out of the troubles and keeping our own peace and tranquility. So we have to control the mind, which simply moves, not knowing what to do, why to do, how to do, where to do. Only when things are very clear, what we want, what we should do, how to do all that, then only we become firm in our actions, and that too with the fruits of the action offered to the Supreme Lord, we become free from tensions and anxiety for the fruits of our actions. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Sankarshanaya Achyutaya Namaha. We will take up in the next session. Hari Om Tat Sat.